Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on how to create a balanced life. I used to speak on this years ago when I was living in Canberra and had a lot of public servant clients, and it seems that even 10 to 15 years later, we still don't have this right, and people still are searching for that elusive balance. So in today's webinar, hopefully, when we get through this, you'll have a few more tips to put into your toolbox and maybe at least to think a bit differently about balance in your life. So the question arises, so is there really such a thing as work-life balance in this 24/7 world we live in? You know, I used to present on this years ago. There wasn't the competition or as much about mobile phones and Facebook and Twitter and every other social media platform out there. People didn't seem to be as addicted to their phones, and that's another webinar to go into later on. I believe there is. I believe there is such a thing, not so much as work-life balance. I think that those two situations have become blended. I also believe that the workplace has a lot to answer for with the continuing demands that they put on employees, and that really that expectation that they should be on 24/7. I think that is a bit disrespectful. That's my personal, I guess my personal pet peeve. I still believe that that you can design a life balance. I don't think we should separate work and life, because many people rely on their work to even fulfill a sense of who they are. Right? So once again, you need to answer that for yourself. I personally believe it does. So what is this work-life balance defined? So Safe Work South Australia defined it back even in 2012, the relationship between your work and the commitments in the rest of your work and how they impact on one another. So when we put it in context in regards to an employer and you're the employee, then there is that work-life balance of having that communication. And I think what you need to take on board is, what is that relationship that you have with your workplace and your immediate boss? The change of bosses and your supervisors can definitely impact the perception of what work-life balance is. And I think also that it can also be impacted if you're a family person or if you're single. Years ago, I wrote an article on singles discrimination, and I saw it in the workplace, and I basically suffered it myself, where because I was single, then more work could be put on me because the perception was I didn't have any other responsibilities. When we look at work-life balance or life balance, there really is no right and wrong. Everyone is different. So the one thing I would suggest, first off, is do not compare yourself to other people. You might observe somebody and go, wow, they seem to have this life balance thing really, under wraps. That's great. You can look to them in a sense for mentorship. You can look to them for aspiring to take on their practices and stuff, but please do not compare what you're doing to what they're doing. There might be circumstances that you don't even know about that they're going through that have no bearing on the way that you run your life. Our changes in personal commitments, our priorities and our personal commitments change over time. So once again, I know many of my friends have been single for quite some time. They get into a relationship, maybe they have children, and next thing you know, they just have different personal commitments. I also, I have friends who are accountants. Maybe in the particular profession that you're in, the priorities change. So for accountants, anytime tax season comes along or filling out BAS or tax returns, that's a really, really busy time. So if you know that's going to occur, then you just need to shift your priorities to somehow maintain that balance. The benefits of having balance. Probably many of these would seem to be like, you kind of know this, but just to confirm it to a certain extent. So benefits of balance, think about it when you felt that you were in balance reduces stress and prevents burnout. I've done a webinar on burnout earlier this week, so I encourage you to seek that video out and just look over it. There's some tips there of how to prevent burnout as well. Another benefit of balance is that it stimulates the immune system. Just like every system, it needs time to recover. If you're an athlete or you know anybody else who's an athlete, they always talk about this recovery time. And it's the same with work, and I think it's the same with mental stimulation, that we need this downtime. So when you take that time out, it allows the immune system to recover. When we see people who just get really knocked out with a cold, the flu, and it really takes them out, they're in bed for 4 or 5 days, their body probably really needed to stop and rest. There's been many stories where people go, gosh, I can't wait for my holiday. So they're working really hard and trying to get everything done, and they're just really working on adrenaline. They go on their holiday and boom, they come back, how was your holiday? They go, oh my gosh, I was so sick during the holiday. Well, the body was just so glad that the person finally stopped, that they could recover. So when you do take that time out and you have that balance, it really stimulates the immune system. And you'll find that once you've started to have that balance, you will actually probably decrease your number of sick days or the number of times you feel off. Increases your sense of happiness. It provides perspective. Once again, because you've taken that time out and because you've had some time to reflect, it gives you perspective of things of, am I doing the right thing in my job? Do I like my job? Should I seek a new one? Am I in the right relationships? What are my kids doing? So it just gives you that time out to look at things differently. It increases the physical health, the energy, and the motivation. It increases your self-esteem and self-development, increases productivity and flexibility. There was a time in the workplaces, they would have specific work-life programs. And I don't hear much about them now. Mind you, I have been out of that corporate health sector for a bit. I know in the States that they still highly encourage them, and mainly because the corporate health systems in the States are very much linked to private health care. And lastly, when you have this benefit, this sense of balance, there's that benefit that you're now engaged with the social support, and you have the connectedness, and you even feel connected to your friends and family a lot more. So the question is really, what is balance for you? And this is very individual. It could be harmony, it could be working out, it could be life, it could be meditation. It really is a very individual thing. Here's the 2 complaints, and I'm sure that those of you who are watching the video or who are on the webinar can relate to this. When I ask people, what are your barriers to balance? They say, well, I just don't have time, right? Time flies. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to read a book. I don't have time to go to the beach, right? Time. And then the next one is, I just don't have money. I don't have the money to go on a holiday. I don't have the money to join a gym. I don't have the money to do this, right? This is this sense of lack, right? They're barriers, right? I'm not saying that it's not true in your life, okay? But when you see really productive people and you go, geez, how do they get it all done? They have a partner, they have kids, they have work, they have this, but they seem to get everything done. Well, it's probably because they're managing their time better. And there's a webinar on the Wise Academy site on that as well. Right? We all have 24 hours in a day. It comes down to, how do we use that? How do we take that time? How do we use it wisely? How do we balance it for work, for family, for self? And the money, what's interesting is that when you look at people that have pretty good life balance, they are not only earning some money, but they actually are healthy enough to spend it. So there might be a lot of high power people out there, CEOs, that are making bucket loads of money. When you look at their quality of life, sometimes they're not happy. They're chasing the dollar, looking at continuously making the dollar, and they're not taking any time out to really enjoy their family or use that money that they can take time out for themselves. So I'm going to share with you, this is a little exercise. You can draw this wheel yourself. It's very simple. There's nothing really scientific about it. In creating this wheel, I broke it down to obviously work, physical activity, family, friends, leisure, spiritual enrichment, learning, and citizenship activity, being involved with the community. So you can replace citizenship activity with community. And look, these are just ones that I've come up with, that I've observed, people that I've spoken to and I've presented to, that these are common. So what we do here is you can replay the webinar if you don't get it all down, but I'll show you how it works. You go through, and the X marks the spot of where things are happening for you right now, right? So X marks the spot. Where am I at right now? So for example, maybe, yeah, I'm working pretty much, not all the way up here, not off the scale. Physical activity is pretty good. Maybe my family's low. Most of my family's in the States. So I really only, blood family, I only really spend time with them on the phone or when I go overseas. Friends, I have friends here and overseas. That's pretty good. But because I might be working too much, I may not be able to spend as much time with my friends. My leisure, spiritual enrichment, my learning, my citizenship activity, how I get involved with the community. And then what I do is I just connect the dots, right? And then once you have that done, use a different color pen or marker. I'm going to do the same thing with where I'd like it to be, right? So you do the circle, and look, you can tell here, I'm actually quite happy where my work aspect is. I thoroughly love what I do. I teach 1 day a week in Brisbane, have great students, and the other days I work on my business, do webinars, involved with community, go to the gym, walk on the beach. So even though some people might go, well, I don't want my work to be that high, for me, that's what works for me, okay? Same thing with physical activity, pretty happy where that is. Maybe I want my family to be a little bit higher. Maybe I want to have a bit more money so I can go overseas more than I can to see my family. My friends, yeah, I'd like to spend a bit more time with them, maybe a little bit more leisure time. I'd like to spend more time doing more meditation, doing more spiritual practices, learning, pretty good there, citizenship activity. So 4 aspects of my life are pretty spot on where I like it, but I can see it's just a little bit off of what I'd really like my life to be. So if you do this for yourself, this will just give you a very rough perspective, but then you can go, as you look here, going, well, how can I fix that? Or do I want to fix it? Where's this lie? Where's this lie? How can I solve this? How can I bring more spiritual enrichment into my life? If you have a partner, I would suggest that both of you do this, and you can see where there's some similarities and where there's differences. So as I said, it's a little exercise to do, and as I said, you can do it with yourself or a partner. You can just draw it and figure out where you're at. Here's some ideas to find balance in your life. First off, keep a log or a journal for a week and record how you spend your time, because that will be quite interesting, especially how much you spend your time on the phone, social media, Facebook, right? Where are you wasting your time? Set aside 1 night a week for leisure or recreation. Only respond to emails during certain times of the day. This is a big one. I know I can get caught into this myself of whenever I hear the ding come up, it's like, oh, there's an email, I gotta go and see if it's important or not, and which then can waste some time. I know people that they only have 3 times during the day that they spend on their emails. First, when they get into the office, or when they get up and they've taken care of their home duties. Then they do it maybe at 11:30, 12, right before or right after lunch, and then right before they leave work. And that's it. And if you didn't get me during those times, well, it's just going to have to wait tomorrow. Get enough sleep. Sleep is really important, and statistics show that majority of people do not have the sleep that they need. Now, me personally, I'm not a big promoter of having 8 hours sleep. What I do promote is, your body's going to know how much you sleep. I sleep without an alarm, and maybe it's habit, but I usually need about 6 to 7 hours sleep. If I go into the 8 to 10 hours, I start to feel really actually groggy when I wake up and all throughout the day. So what you have to do is find out what is that key hour or those key hours of sleep that you need to function at your peak on any given day. Set goals and priorities. Even at the beginning of the day, I set a list of things I'd like to accomplish during the day, and I prioritize them. So what do I really, really need to get done today? What would I like to get done today? And what doesn't necessarily need to get done today, but it'd be good if I did get it done. So observing that. Schedule regular breaks throughout the day. So, if you're working, and technically workplaces are supposed to give you 2 breaks, morning tea and afternoon tea and lunch. But if you're working from home, or, you're remote worker, etc., you need to take that time, even if it is just getting away from the computer, going outside, breathing some fresh air. I think that's a really big one. Then you can go back, but really get used to taking those regular breaks during the day. There was a company I was working with years ago, and don't know if it's around anymore, but he called it Office Gym. And it was an online program that one of the things you could do is you could time it, that whatever you were working on, it would save the document, obviously, because you won't want to lose it. But it would give you a warning sign like, okay, your computer is going to go into sleep mode, so you can take a break. Now, mind you, the downside of that was you could override it and say, bugger, I'm not taking a break. I'm just going to keep working on, which totally defeated the purpose. But there are programs like that can remind you to take a break and to get up and walk around. This is my big one, because I just see so many people really addicted to their phone and social media. So have phone-free and social media times. When I go to the gym, that is my time. I do not take the phone into the gym. I usually either leave it in my car or keep it in my locker. If you use your phone, so you need music and everything, that's another thing. But really try to stay away from saying that you're not going to text anybody and you're not going to take a phone call during that time. You really need to set those boundaries. And that's what we're talking about with having a balanced life, is setting those boundaries and letting other people know this is my time with my friends or myself or my family, and this is what I need to make sure that I can be a productive and contributing human being on this planet, especially in this 24/7 world. I always like to include this, and it's basically give yourself permission. Over the years, I've noticed that women struggle more with the work-life balance than men. And when I say to them that you need to give yourself permission to take care of yourself, that it really starts to empower them. Because at the end of the day, especially if you're a mom and you're the primary caregiver of the children, meaning that you're running the school and picking them up and everything, it really is about you. And I remember saying to this group of women, I said, if your partner ever gives you a hassle, just say, look, I need this time to myself, because if I don't get it, I could get unwell. And then if I'm, in bed for 7 days, guess what? You're going to have to do everything. You're going to have to take the kids to school. You're going to have to pick them up. You're going to have to cook for them and feed them and do the laundry. And when you start putting that in perspective, doesn't understand these things, hopefully it'll sink in to go, oh, I guess you're right. You really do need time for yourself. Because I see so many mothers get burnt out. And that's no disrespect to the fathers out there at all. I'm just sharing this from my observation over the years. So give yourself permission to move, right? To get some activity in. Now, it might not be running. It could just be walking on the beach, going to a yoga class, going to a group exercise class. It doesn't matter, but our body needs movement. It was constructed to move. It wasn't really constructed to sit in front of a computer 5, 8, 10 hours, 12 hours a day. So really, when you do take that break, even if you're at the workplace, Get out, even going for a 5-10 minute walk around the park. Hopefully there's a park near you, just to get that fresh air. So giving yourself permission to move. You can do weights, you can do resistance training, so anything just to get that body moving. Then take some time out to relax. Some people might see this meditation, going into that really meditative state, as a way to relax. But relaxing can be just doing some visualization, going to a laughter group. Okay, there's a lot of laughter groups happening around the world, and laughter is such a great medicine in itself. Hug a lot. That's with perspective, you could get into trouble at work with some workplaces. But just having that time to relax with friends, getting that social engagement with people, and most importantly, have fun. And what does that mean? It means whatever you want it to be. If that means going out to get a pizza and beer with friends, or going bowling, or doing some other kind of sport activity, maybe going to the movies, going to a theme park, doing some roller coaster rides, it doesn't matter what fun is. And just be aware, some people say, oh, you need to go out and have fun, and they expect you to do what they think is fun. No. Fun is a very individual thing, and embrace it. But whatever that is, please give yourself permission and go out and just have fun. So I thank you very much for your time and attention on this webinar, and have a great day and have some fun. Thanks very much for listening.